Hello and welcome to another of the occasional series, Chip Chat. And it's been a while since I've recorded one, so I'm really happy to be doing this one today. And with me today, I've got Grant. Say hello, Grant.
Hello.
And Sully. Say hello, Sully.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Halo Infinite and some of the issues around it and the hardware and everything that's been announced for it. We're also going to hopefully be talking a little bit about Sony, the flip-flopping over Horizon Forbidden West, and also looking forward to tomorrow's event, which by the time you're listening to this will probably already be over. And then if we've got time, we might have a little bit of a chat about the Steam Deck, because that's another one that I'm interested in. And these guys said they were interested in it as well. So just before we get started, let me just ask you quickly what you've been up to. So Sully first, what have you been up to?
A lot of bits and pieces, particularly attaining to, I guess, my business, my e-commerce business. So, like we discussed a little bit before the podcast, I probably don't game as much as I wish I did. But yeah, making a lot of silicon molds, doing a lot of resin art, scouring the internet for stock for the store. Yeah, playing, as far as gaming goes, I've been playing a bit of Doom Eternal, Witcher 3 actually, Wild Hunt, which I haven't played it yet, which I've been really enjoying that. I may have bitten off a bit more than I can chew though, because it's taking forever for me to even make a little dent in the game. But we'll see how we go, I guess. So yeah, I'm just lots of bits and pieces. Lots of bits and pieces. Yeah,
and taking Xbox controllers apart.
yeah, always tinkering. So, yeah, I'm always tinkering with something, whether it, be an Xbox controller, Game Boys. Everything I do is kind of like creatively driven as far as my hobbies go that are outside of gaming. So, yeah, plenty to keep me busy.
Cool. And how about you, Grant?
Well, I mean, game-wise, I've been playing quite a bit, but I seem to have an ongoing obsession with zombie games. So I've mostly been playing those recently, like Dying Light, State of Decay 2, stuff like that. I was thinking of sort of like starting to do content again and just concentrating on zombie games because I've got an obsession with them. So I don't know why, and it might die out in like a month or two. But I resurrected my channel, talking of zombies, and I thought maybe, if anyone's still interested in the content, I might start up to doing some more videos again, but it's a wait and see thing at the moment.
And when you're not talking about zombie games, you could go into malls and take pictures of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Dead Rising, isn't it? That's a Dead Rising reference. Yeah, I get it. I've been playing a little bit of everything recently, mostly older games and sort of smaller titles, like not much AAA. The only AAA stuff has been like a few years old, because let's face it, there's not a lot out at the moment, is there really?
AAA space is boring as far as I'm concerned at the moment.
So it's mostly really.
Let's hope Sony, and we'll get to that a bit later on, but let's hope Sony excite us a bit more tomorrow with their event, hopefully. But we'll get to that a bit later on. Okay. I'll just briefly, all I've been doing really is game-wise, I was playing Plague Tale Innocence, which I've been really enjoying. Yeah. And you said you'd finished that one, Grant. I don't know if you've played it, Sully. But,
no, I haven't.
That one's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good, that. It's a good game.
So, yeah. But anyway, let's get to the... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say one game that I almost started playing last week was Alan Wake, but I'm glad I didn't, because there's a remaster that got announced today.
Yeah, that is one thing I'm excited for, because I've not actually finished it. I'm quite a way through the game, never did finish it.
No, I'm the same.
I stopped because I heard the rumours.
Yeah, I played it a couple of years ago when it was free on the Epic Games Store, and it was still played fairly well for a game that's about 10 years old or something, or nearly 10 years old.
It is,
and I got near the end of the game, and I'm thinking, well, I'll just start a new playthrough when the remaster comes out. That's genuinely quite exciting news, I think.
Yeah, I missed that one, so I'm actually I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm definitely going to wait for the remaster.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great game. I think it's got a great story and everything. It's great fun. But anyway, let's get to another game and talk about Halo. Which one of you guys wants to go first on this? How do you feel about Halo and the delays that we've heard about Halo? Do you want to go, Grant? Do you want to mention this?
Yeah, so from what I understand, the campaign and the multiplayer is what they release in December, is that right? And the co-op,
absolutely, yeah.
The co-op's coming at a later date. So, no, I've heard some people that have been up in arms about this because they very selectively play the game only via co-op, which I kind of understand. I mean, I remember the early Halo games. People saying they were a lot of fun when you played them co-op, but I'm just thinking, well, how much of percentage of the Halo player base do you genuinely play it as a co-op game? Because aren't they more interested in the multiplayer? I don't know how much the campaign matters as well. I mean, you've got to bear that in mind. I mean, you always see these statistics, don't you, about how many people actually finish games, and it's quite low.
Bloody low,
even the big Call of Duty titles and things like that.
I think Halo could be one of the biggest exceptions to that general statistics. Right. I think there's a lot of retention for the Halo campaigns. In terms of, there seems to be a lot of replayability, and I mean, I'm talking from like my experience with the games, and in terms of like couch co-op and online co-op, because they do put a lot of extra bells and whistles into the campaign, like with like the skulls, and they do try to bake in a lot of replayability. And Halo's always had like a bit of jankiness associated with its like physics engine, so there's so many glitches you can exploit that change the playthrough. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like the campaigns have a lot of replay value and retention.
No, that's good. I mean, I haven't finished a campaign since the second one. So, it's been a while, but I really enjoy the Halo campaigns. I mean, the original Halo game, which I got with the Xbox, I bought it at the same time. Fantastic campaign. Absolutely loved it. I mean, the gunplay, everything has been like one of the highlights of Halo. It has a very good flow to it. The combat. So
they always talk about the combat loop. That was always their big thing. I think it was like 30 seconds of fun, and if you can capture that 30 seconds, you can just put it on repeat.
That's right. It's the magic formula, isn't it?
Yeah.
That games like Doom try and repeat now as well.
And I think, you guys know my views on Halo and the way it changed everything. And I think, this is one of the reasons why Halo is such an important title for Microsoft. It was the game that kind of announced them, really, more than anything else, when they first appeared on the scene. Yeah. And so Halo Infinite needs to capture that element. It needs to do something that makes people sit up and take notice of it again, I think. I think with the co-op, personally, and I think I might have said this to you, Sully, I certainly said it on a video about this. Personally, for me, the co-op isn't something that I play that much. I dip into it with my lad, but he gets bored and wants to go off and play Fortnite or Minecraft or something else. He's not into Halo. He's not a Halo fan. He enjoys it for a short period of time, and then he wants to play something else. So he's the only one I'd really play co-op with. Back in the day, if you even go back in the day, I never really played through Halo in co-op. And I've never really touched Forge either. However, it's not about me personally. It's about the general audience out there and whether this is a good thing or not. And I think you guys already touched on this with the idea of stats. I think Microsoft would have ideally liked to have put this whole thing out as one big package. I think that's what they would have liked to have done. But I think, was it Joseph Staten? I can't remember his name.
That's the one.
I think he's looked at it and he's realised that if they concentrate on certain aspects, they'll be able to polish them and hone them and get them out. And I hope that's going to be the case, and it'll be good when it drops. And I think that he probably looked at Forge and co-op and thought, well, look at the stats. Are they the most popular parts? They might be popular, but are they the most popular parts? We know that the campaign and the online is going to be big, so maybe we can ship with those and drop these other two later. And certainly Forge, I don't think is going to be negatively impacted by dropping later. No. Maybe co-op is. I certainly can understand why some people who like to do their first playthrough co-op would be a bit disappointed by this. Yeah. But I'm not sure I'm not sure it's going to impact Halo in the long term, as long as the parts that do drop are good. They have to be, at the very least, good.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, now that they're doing this, they've got to kind of make sure that the core game is there to begin with, because if it's not, then they're going to get more criticism for it, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could kill the game,
What is the core experience of a game? It's the multiplayer and the single player. It's going to ship with both of those, and one of them is actually free.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of understand where Joseph Staten's coming from with this. I mean, I think we should be looking at it in the same way as well. Like, this isn't like it's shipped and then they're going to play a bit of catch up and it's done, and that's it for Halo, till the next one. This is going to be some kind of hybrid between a shipped and done game and an ongoing support. I don't want to use the term live service. I think it's a bit of a dirty word, and they haven't really called it a live service either. But, this is going to be the Halo that they're intending to support for the next 10 years. They're not looking to rush out another Halo. So, if they can drop the core game and have it polished and work and be well received, I think that's a pretty good starting point in terms of just shipping a complete package. I think it's disappointing that co-op's not going to be there day one. But I think I mentioned this to you a couple of days ago, Joe, is that it's not the end of the world if we have some big features dropping a little bit later down the line. If this is a 10-year Halo...
Apart from anything else, I think you said this, that it keeps refreshing it. It's actually, it could end up being a good thing because it'll keep people interested.
They're going to need big staples to drop over the next 10 years if they do actually want Halo to be profitable between releases for 10 years, which I'm assuming is the goal. So it's not the end of the world. I mean, as far as my play style goes with Halo, I probably spend more time playing campaign than I do multiplayer. I have a feeling I'll spend a lot of time in this multiplayer, though. I played The Flight. I really enjoyed it. But as far as my campaign time goes, I'm always a single player, when I say single player, I play the campaign solo by myself for the first run. And then after that, I'll probably only want to play it co-op online.
That would be my way. That would be my approach.
And I think I have a feeling if this game is anything like Destiny, which I have a feeling it will be, it's probably going to be a bit of like, that open play space world where it's going to be a lot of PvE action, like daily challenges, little missions that they'll keep wanting you to go through and replay. And you're going to want to do that with friends. So I think it's a pretty big feature to not have their day one, but if they can kind of, get that out in the first quarter, and get people geared up for like all of the, this is the reasons why you want to replay the campaign, because it's like Destiny, you want to go get the upgrades, the loot, or whatever it is. I think that's something to look forward to. I think there's going to be plenty to keep us busy before co-op drops.
I did wonder if because you mentioned it, I did wonder if they were going to looking at how Destiny, especially the second game's progressed. Well, whether they were going to be inspired by that formula.
Yeah, I think
with the next Halo.
They haven't drawn any comparisons themselves, as far as I know, between themselves and Destiny. They haven't even called it a live service, as far as what I've heard. But they do talk in their blog posts about there being like banished encampments, in levels, or they don't even use the term levels. They say on the map. So I think it is breaking away from like your typical standalone mission type, and it's going to be very open world. It's going to be a lot of the sandboxes will be large. There's going to be a lot of replayability, and they do talk about day and night cycles and attacking banished camps at different times of the day, and how you can change up your gameplay strategy based on what time of the day it is, what the weather's like. So that
that sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah,
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, just that there. When they're talking about that little nutshell of attacking a banished camp and how you can do it so many different ways, that's a lot of replayability just in that little slither that they just detailed. So I think this is all going to be about why you want to replay the campaign. Just
My
like
only
Destiny.
worry there is that if they do go this route and it's kind of semi-open world or even fully open world, then I think you guys know my issues with some of the open world games.
Yeah,
they have to make those campaign elements, those encampments and things like that, they have to make them varied.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's just basically the same thing in a slightly different part of the map over and over again, then that will lose my interest really quiely.
Because they did that in Destiny, didn't they? They had that problem. It was repetitive. Like these events would happen on a timer, and people would join them, and then you just end up repeating them.
Look, I think there's always going to be an element of that, because you can only keep a game so fresh if you want it to be them to be replaying it, the campaign. You can only do so much, but hopefully, Destiny's been around like 10 years now. Hopefully they've observed all the shortcomings with these live service games, and I think it's important for Halo to be Halo first, and then try and branch off, with some of these replayability options, with like, day and night cycles and attacking banished camps. So
yeah, I think, they've maybe learned from Sea of Thieves as well to some extent. I know it's a completely different style of game, but if they're going for that kind of open world thing, and, if you look at Sea of Thieves, I don't really play Sea of Thieves. I only, dabbled with it at the beginning. I found some elements of it were great, actually funny. When you were playing with other people, you could have a real laugh, but ultimately quite shallow. But I understand now that, the content has ramped up massively. It's got some interesting missions, and people who like Sea of Thieves love that game. So if they can manage to do something like that with Halo and keep it fresh and interesting, but that's always the question, isn't it, with these types of games? Is it something that they can do? Can they sustain that? Certainly for 10 years, because 10 years is a long time in gaming terms.
Well, I think with Microsoft seem to have this philosophy with their games, though, that then we touched on it, that they want to keep that kind of that sort of ongoing, not as I say, not a live service, but they want their games to have a kind of that multiplayer appeal that sustains itself over a period of time. You've seen Sea of Thieves develop; all their games seem to do this. Even something I've been playing recently, State of Decay 2, constantly being updated. Yeah, they're constantly having new content added to it, and it's not in that live service context necessarily, but it's still enough to get people to keep coming back to it.
Yeah, I think they're good at delivering like play spaces that are good at building their own communities. Yeah, and those communities keep the games alive. Like, look at Minecraft, for example, and Sea of Thieves. Like, Sea of Thieves had its biggest day recently with the Pirates of the Caribbean drop. So I think you're 100% right, Grant. They love delivering that. The platform and then kind of growing it. And, somebody else that's good with that in a few cases is Ubisoft. They've had a lot of success there as well.
Although Ubisoft do that thing that I was saying about earlier. I get bored with Ubisoft games really quickly.
Yeah.
They can do. I mean, the only problem with Ubisoft is they had this idea with games like, I think with the Division 2, they didn't necessarily want to do the Division 2, but because the first game didn't live up to the expectations they had for it. But the idea was with the second one, it will last this amount of time. But then, because it didn't hit sales numbers, they didn't produce the content they said they were going to, and their roadmap, which they set out, became a bit of a joke because they completely ignored it and scrapped it within about 6 months of saying that what it was going to be. And it's about their commitment as much as anything. Yeah. Microsoft probably a little bit more committed than Ubisoft, I would say, when it comes to ongoing games.
Interesting thing about the Ubisoft is that I feel like they've had ongoing services and games be supported for like long periods of time, like Rainbow Siege, but it's happened with games that I don't think they necessarily expected it to happen with. And I think it's those games that are the most boiled down pure elements of the game, like Rainbow Siege. It's just tactical shooting in houses. You had For Honor, but then you get games like freaking hell was it their Ghost Recon game that they were, and Division 2, which they were trying to build into these big open world live service games. They fell flat on their faces.
It's because a lot of the gameplay loop was boring.
Yeah. But to swing it,
at the end of the day, people want to enjoy their gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. To swing it back to Halo, Joe, you spoke about, can they keep like the world and the maps varied enough and entertaining enough. Something I loved about Halo the most through every single Halo, predominantly probably the original trilogy, but it was always about map exploration. Like, you're always trying to find new nooks and crannies and secrets in the map. And if they can do that in Infinite and really blow that out of the water, which I have a feeling that's the whole point of these massive play spaces and replayability, I think it's going to have a lot of legs. But also, like, if this is a 10-year game, you know, and we're operating on like a ring world, you know, how cool would it be to see new expansion packs drop and you just unlock entire new sections of the ring to explore, like, annually?
Or see the planet develop, you know, as things change
exactly.
As sort of like different factions and things emerge, you know.
Exactly. Really cool. That would be really cool. Like, imagine if the main campaign only took place over half the ring. And, you know, then the next 10 years we get to look forward to what's happening on other areas of the ring, you know, and through this single player campaign, they could like leave little breadcrumbs all over the place that kind of pique your interest about other things happening elsewhere.
And it's not like the lore in Halo isn't rich enough to do that, is it? I mean, they've got plenty of things they can draw on.
Well, speaking of lore,
I think you... Sorry, go on.
Just real quickly, speaking of lore, I think I'm up to my 15th Halo novel in the last 8 months.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I've been like binging.
You are the Uber fan.
Wow, I've been binging the lore because, you know, Halo Infinite got delayed. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna start smashing through the novels, and a lot of them are like, you know, it's not the best writing.
Paint by numbers.
Yeah, you know, it's like PG-13 fantasy, sci-fi, military, you know, novels. You know, not by the best penners either, but, you know, the lore that's in there is insane. So yeah, and I know I'm going overboard here, but I want to just bring it back around to Halo 5. Halo 5, I recently had a playthrough, only my second ever playthrough of Halo 5, because I didn't enjoy Halo 5. I thought it was a pretty average outing for Halo, very average outing for Halo. I think the multiplayer was solid in a lot of cases, but the campaign, it just didn't really do it for me. I thought a lot of the plot was like poorly executed as well. But after reading a lot of the extended universe in novels, my appreciation for Halo 5 is substantially more. There's a lot of lore that's actually in there that you don't realize until you've actually absorbed a lot of the extended universe. So anyway, sorry.
Well, I went back and finished Halo 5 fairly recently as well, and taking it away from all the kind of negativity that surrounded it at launch and all the rest of it, and just playing it through. Do you know what? It wasn't a stellar installment in the franchise, but it wasn't that bad either. It was quite an enjoyable, fun ride. And I quite enjoyed it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know what? Like, it's something really, really cool to go to the Sangheili homeworld, the Elite's homeworld, in like a Halo game and see it all on your screen when you've been reading about it through 15 books. To see it actually on the screen, it's really cool for that to happen.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of little things like that in Halo 5 that I think a lot of the book readers would have really appreciated.
I need to play catch up with the games because I had the Master Chief Collection and I started playing ODST.
Oh yeah,
not that long ago, but I sort of stopped. Mostly because I was rubbish and couldn't get past this one point. But I didn't want to turn the difficulty down out of pride or something. But I need to go back to it, and because I didn't get past 2, I sort of like dropped off the Halo games, and I just want to sort of like catch up to the point where we are. You know, obviously I won't be able to do that before Infinite comes out, but you know, I just want to
might be surprised. They're only like 8-hour campaigns on normal.
Okay, maybe I'll go through 3, 4 and finish ODST and Reach. And
ODST, it's a little dated, but it's quite fun. And the characters are fun too.
That's having what I thought, initially.
Nathan Fillion voice and be portrayed as his own physical appearance in that game is really cool. He is actually rendered really well in Halo 5 as well. He is actually a continuing character in Halo 5, Buck from ODST. He's actually got his own novel too about what happens to his squad post ODST Halo 3 as well, which is also really cool.
I think it's a real shame he didn't get the role as Nathan Drake because he did that short film, didn't he? He would have been great in Uncharted, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just fits the role. He just seems like Nathan Drake to me. So
I feel like if he was maybe a decade younger, he could have got it. maybe just getting up there a little bit too much. Maybe for like if they're viewing it as like a 10-year franchise.
He was a bloody shoe-in, I think. If you say, if it had been 10 years ago, it was him, wasn't it? He was Nathan Drake. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just one more thing on Halo before we move on. I think you touched on this earlier, Sully, when you said Halo needs to be first and foremost a Halo game.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely crucial. I think more than anything else, they can change pretty much. Well, they can change a lot of things within the way they lay the maps out and all the rest of it. But it has to feel like Halo. I remember talking to my mate years ago about Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man game, and they took a few liberties, like the web shooters were built in rather than in making them and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? I can let that ride because it feels like Spider-Man. And I think that's the thing here. I think this has to, if you go in and you play, and from what I've seen of it so far, I didn't get to play the multiplayer because we were actually away at the time, so I didn't get a chance to dip into that. But from what I've heard, when you play it, it feels like Halo. If you go into this and it feels like Halo, I think people will be happy, as long as it hasn't got all the glitches and this stuff it did when it was first shown, at whatever it was, E3 or whenever it was first shown. I think if people go in and they play it and it feels like Halo and they feel comfortable with it and it looks reasonable and the gameplay loop is good, I think it will be fine.
I think you're spot on. It's got to feel like it. From what I could see of the multiplayer, it looked like it seemed to nail the kind of feel of the classic multiplayer Halo.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't play it, so I can't say for sure.
So I played quite a bit of the flight. And you guys are right. It feels like Halo, and it feels like, if you were to modernize Halo, where do you draw the line? Because that's the issue Halo has, and it's had since Halo 3, is that, the mechanics of the original trilogy, pushed that envelope so far, and then, a lot of time lapse between 343 picking up Halo and running with it. And, we're looking at a 20-year-old franchise now. These 343 was never going to have an easy time pleasing a new audience and the original audience, because the original audience wants it to feel like, the original trilogy. For all its shortcomings or not, like, I don't think it would be a good idea to make a Halo Infinite that plays like Halo 2. I think that would be a terrible idea.
I think the issue it's got as well, isn't it, is with when Bungie then started making Destiny felt like an evolution of the Halo model. So they've got that to contend with as well, haven't they? Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I think they're just, it's just, how do you, I don't think they're trying to reinvent Halo. They're just trying to figure out how to like modernize it the right way to capture, the next generation of Halo gamers. Yeah. And to me, the flight, it felt like a pretty good balance. It felt like Halo. It felt like we'd taken a step backwards from like Halo 4 and 5, but that's to the benefit of Halo in a lot of ways. For example, one of the biggest sticking points with Halo has been sprint in the new games. Like, the diehard fans and the purists of Halo, they don't like sprint because they think it breaks the gameplay loop if you can just kind of sprint and get away from your enemy. Like, they just don't like it. And how they've addressed it in Halo Infinite is that sprint is still there and the animation is still there, but you only move like 2% faster.
It's interesting because a lot of multiplayer games, they have everyone move at the same speed, and there's probably a good reason for that, like you say.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how do you balance it? You know?
But I mean, like, it's so they appease the new audience because it actually feels like you're sprinting. Like, I played the flight, it feels like you're sprinting, and then I found out later that you're not actually really moving any faster. But it's going to appease all these modern shooter fans because they're going to feel like they're sprinting. So that they've just checked the box off in a very clever way. So they've done a lot of like clever workarounds like that to kind of modernize it and have it still feel like Halo and appease kind of the original core audience. Like, it's not breaking the gameplay.
Sounds like a sensible solution to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a monumental task, isn't it? With something like Halo that That is, I mean, especially as we're on the 20th anniversary, everyone's looking back to the original Halo. We've spoken about the original Halo at length before, about what a groundbreaking title it was, how it introduced us to shooters on consoles that worked properly for once, because it was the first time that, console shooters actually worked. You go back and play GoldenEye. Yeah, GoldenEye's
exactly.
Horrible. You try and play those games now, they're horrible to play. They talk about controls. I mean, anyway, let's not go there. But so it is a monumental task keeping everybody happy, Yeah. And I think that initial thing they showed was probably a bad idea. They had to show something perhaps, but it wasn't ready. It clearly wasn't ready at that point. But they have seemingly come quite a long way since then.
Yeah, they've learned from it as well, haven't they? They've learned from that, from the mistakes they made.
Yeah, and that's what you can ask. Nobody gets it right every time.
No.
But it's what you do once you realise you've made a mistake, isn't it? It's how you address that. And I do think they've tried to address it.
Yeah, it's a terrifying position to be in when you're the studio developing Halo and you feel like the franchise at its core has it's lost what it is. To try and bring that back around onto the right course, wow, I admire that team because that's a real challenge. Like I said, Joe, the original Halo was such a huge title and it had huge impact for so many reasons. And now Halo is just trying to figure out what the fuck Halo is in 2021. That's terrifying if you're a developer.
Yeah. And there's no way it can be as groundbreaking as the first Halo. It just can't happen. No. If anyone thinks that is likely to happen, then they're living in Cloud Cuckoo Land. It's just not going to happen. What we want is something that's going to drop and it's going to be solid. It's going to be fun to play. It's going to feel like Halo. And if it does all that, then I don't think anyone can have too many complaints, frankly.
No, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of similarities. I think Battlefield's in a similar position because it's had two, arguably a really crap previous one, and the one before was contentious. I liked Battlefield 1, but other people didn't. But then there's so many expectations riding on the game being good.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember that it's a very, very competitive gaming environment now compared to, say, 20 years ago when Halo was released for the first time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's
amazing, that you said it, Grant. You have another pedigree from 10 years ago struggling to find its way and its feet.
Yeah.
It's interesting. They've almost been around so long that they just lost where they were going.
It's not, it's not unusual in a way, though, because, I mean, we see it in the film industry and stuff. You look at films like Terminator, the franchises, God knows what's happened to that. Alien, the franchise is all over the place. Predator, the franchise is all over the place. It's really hard to sustain. Be interesting to see what happens with The Matrix, if it can actually bring it back to being the quality of the first film.
Yeah, I watched the trailer of that, actually. One thing I read was a very interesting comment once about, you remember the original Deus Ex game? And then when they made the sequel, and the sequel was not well received, I remember reading an interview with developers where they pretty much admitted they didn't know why the first game was a success. Now, of course, if you don't know why people liked your first game, how are you going to make a sequel that's going to be well received?
My God.
And I thought that was really revealing. It's like, how could you not know why people liked your first game?
Well, it's like you've hit on something and it was an accident almost.
Yeah, I know.
I did not know the Matrix 4 trailer was out, by the way. I'm really excited now.
Yeah.
I hope it was good. I hope so.
As an aside, I worked with a girl when The Matrix came out. I worked with a girl and she came in one day and declared she'd watched The Matrix, and she's like, "It's a load of old rubbish. I couldn't understand a word that they were talking about. What was it? It's rubbish. I hate it."
My girlfriend at times said, "Well, there was a lot of guns in there, wasn't it? It was very much a boys' movie, wasn't it?"
You're like, if you say so.
Missed all the deeper stuff then. Yeah.
I thought it was great. I said,
"Yeah." It was one of the some films come along. It's like when Terminator, the first Terminator, when that dropped. I remember when that dropped, and it was a low budget movie, and it was a revelatory experience. When I went to see that, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And you get every so often you get things come along like that, and The Matrix was one of those when it dropped. And bringing it back round to Halo, when Halo dropped as a game, it was that kind of experience. It was like, oh, I never expected this. This is so it was so revelatory.
I remember when Edge magazine gave it a 10 out of 10, and it was like it sort of blew up the game from sort of something from this low expectation title to suddenly, oh my god,
yeah,
it's like, where did this come from?
And you're never ever going to be able to sustain that level. There's only one way down from the mountain, if you like. Yeah. Once you've reached that 10 out of 10 level, you can't keep going up. You can, if you're lucky, you can sustain it for a while, but you're always going to have dips. It's bound to happen.
Hopefully for long-running series like Battlefield and Halo, hopefully it's a case of you can't have your ups without your downs. So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Well, you learn more, don't you, from the mistakes you make in previous... You would hope so.
Yeah,
you'd hope that applies as much to games as it does to anything else.
Yeah.
Doesn't always, but,
So, yeah, hopefully. And, I am optimistic. I'm, not jumping from the rooftops about it, but I am optimistic about Halo. I think it probably will be at least solid, and I think it will be fun. What do you guys think? Let's finish with that. What do you think it's going to drop and it will be fine, or do you think that maybe it still has problems?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I actually think it's going to be really, really good. After playing the multiplayer flight, that kind of settled me quite a lot. Like, it feels like definitely the multiplayer is going to be really rock solid. They feel like they got that right. And if the campaign, I didn't mind what I saw in 2020 as far as the campaign went. Like, I thought the gameplay loop was good. I liked the scope of the environment. There was glaring technical issues. Yep, totally agree. I get that. But if that's had an extra year to cook, and if the campaign is being fleshed out the way that I think it's being fleshed out in some kind of Destiny-esque way, and if they get that right, I think it's going to be really, really good. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think it's going to be really good.
Yep. Grant?
Yeah, I would say I think it's going to be at least a kind of like a solid 8 out of 10 experience. I don't have huge expectations for it, but I still think it's going to be the best Halo for a long time.
Absolutely.
I would agree. I think it's probably going to be somewhere around 8 out of 10. And if it's more than that, then I'll be very pleasantly surprised. But I think 8 out of 10 will be perfectly fine. I don't think we should get over excited about it and expect it to be this, earth shattering, world changing event. I think it's just, it'll drop. And if it feels like Halo and we can enjoy it.
And
Gears 5 is a good example because that's a solid 8 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. And
agreed.
Absolutely,
that was really fun to play. The campaign is really... I enjoyed that a lot, actually.
Oh, God, I loved playing that game. It was so much fun. Yeah.
I can't remember if I said this or not, but it's had an extra year to bake as well. So that's only going to do it benefit a lot. And they brought the GOAT back, Joseph Staten. That man could do a lot in a year in terms of, tweaking, getting the feel right. I'll leave it at that. I'm excited.
Yep. So the consensus here is that we're all cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Good. Right. Now let's move on to Sony and, or Sony, as somebody corrected me again the other day. I won't get into that here again. Let's talk first before we talk about tomorrow's event. And as I said before, by the time you are listening to this, it will probably be yesterday or last week's event. But before we get into that, let's talk briefly about Horizon Forbidden West. And as I put it in a video, the way that Sony seemed to be flip-flopping over this. And I'll just lay in a little bit of background on this because I know, Sully, we were talking about this beforehand. Basically, what happened was that Sony announced that their launch titles were going to have free upgrades from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. And those titles included Horizon Forbidden West, Spider-Man Miles Morales, if I remember rightly. But anyway, there were a few that were launch titles that were going to get free upgrades from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, which turns out to be a good thing because people can't get hold of PlayStation 5s, so they could buy it on PlayStation 4 and then upgrade at a later date for free. However, titles that weren't launch titles were going to have a $10 fee. And what happened with Horizon Forbidden West went something along those lines. It's no longer a launch title. So now we're going to charge you to upgrade unless you buy the 2 top-tier editions, which are going to cost you well over £100 and over £200. I think it's about $250 or $270, I think, for the top-tier version. I haven't checked again since I made my video on this. But anyway, so then people were annoyed. And then it also turned out that other games that are coming, for instance, God of War and Gran Turismo, will also still have the $10 upgrade. So that's the background to it. What do you guys make of it? Do you want to go first on this, Sully? What do you think of this?
I don't see how you can spin this in a positive light for Sony. It seems like a bit of a penny pinch to me. It seems odd, like the amount of flip-flopping they're doing. It's like, do you or do you not want the money? Just be firm with whatever path you're going down and just lay the law down. This is how it's going to be. So kind of the jumping back and forth they've done is a little bit odd.
Yeah, it's inconsistent.
Yeah, they've overcomplicated it, I think, a lot for themselves. I mean, I kind of see why they're charging the extra $10, because they don't want people buying the previous gen version and then just getting a cheaper version of the game and upgrading for free. If they're on the PS5, they just won't buy the PS5 version.
Yeah.
But is that the end of the world? Like, how many people have PS5s? How much money, $10 lots of money are you missing out on, by people going back and buying the previous gen?
You said this beforehand. If they hadn't put the price up to $70, it wouldn't be an issue anyway, would it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, can you just somehow put in some kind of firewall where people can't play that game on the PS5? I don't know. It's weird. Like, they've just got themselves stuck in a weird position where they're clearly just trying to squeeze out the $10 out of people. I think the easy way to have done it would have been to, if to stop people from going back and buying the previous gen and then upgrading to free and then not buying the physical copy for PS5, like the working around it that way and then shipping Sony out of $10. Why couldn't they have just said that, all right, if this game has never been activated on a PS4 before the launch date, for you can't play it on the PS5 or something, like you have to buy it or buy it digitally only. I don't know. I'm sure there was a better workaround than it's seeming like they're just trying to stop people from buying the previous gen version and upgrading for free, which is how it should be, by the way.
Just in what Microsoft have done anyway. I mean, it's just smart delivery. You buy it if you've got the Xbox One, it'll play on that, and if you've got the Xbox Series S and X, it'll give you the upgraded version. What's the problem?
I know, it's almost as if they thought of a solution, Microsoft, and applied it.
It's
like, what happened with Sony?
What happened with Sony was they just clearly want some extra cash.
It's like if you're not busy getting microtransactions from a game, they do it in this way.
I mean, I know
which is even worse.
Sony isn't like the healthiest of big companies, but does $10 per game really add up to
Well,
really
especially as you end up in situations like with me, where I look at it and I'm going, well, I'm not going to buy it then. I'll wait until I can get it in a sale, or I'll wait until I can get it secondhand. I've bought literally so far one game, I kid you not, one game for the PlayStation 5. Because I'm just not, and you can pick them up cheaper, but I'm just not paying £70 for a game. And
this is the thing, isn't it? A lot of people are saying that.
The thing is as well, is it went from $60 to $70, and it went from like £50 to £70. So we were shafted twice, and God knows what they're doing with you in Australia, Sully, because you lot get it even worse, it seems, quite often.
Yeah, I honestly don't even look at the box games anymore. It's Game Pass. That's it. It's nothing else.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing as well, is I haven't touched my PlayStation for months. I honestly, I haven't. And I know there's going to be PlayStation guys, if they've got this far into this, there's going to be PlayStation guys who will be going, oh, he's an Xbox fanboy. But that's not it. The reality is that playing the Xbox for me is a much more enjoyable experience, certainly this generation. It wasn't necessarily the case last generation.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But this there's certainly elements this generation. When you see people like Paul Tassi, who've always been preferred PlayStation, and they're saying, I'm actually more enjoying the Xbox more now. And I keep getting people coming in my comments saying, I've always had a PlayStation and I bought an Xbox this time round. There's a change going on out there. I'm
the same. I was very staunch PS4 last gen, and I love the PS4. And I look at it this gen. I mean, even when I've got the money to buy one, I just don't want to buy one. I don't see the attraction of it when a lot of my friends are saying, yeah, I bought a PS5, but I bought one game for it. And like you've just said, Joe, and it's mostly because I'm not going to pay that for a 10-hour single-player experience. I'm going to wait for a sale.
Yeah, I was actually the same. I was PS4 through and through last generation. Didn't touch the Xbox One at all. Didn't even enjoy Halo 5. So, but yeah, it's complete 180 so far as I'm concerned. I think another weird question is why are PS5 players being charged more for a disc for the same game over PS4 owners? Why aren't PS4 owners paying more? If the games cost more to make, why are the PS5 owners only paying more?
Oh, I don't know. Sony will probably turn around and say, "Well, it's better tech, and you're paying for an upgrade or upgraded experience." But come on,
if that is the case, that is the biggest crock of shit I think I've ever heard. Like, at least be consistent. If you can't just charge one bunch of people this amount for the same game. You got to charge everyone the same fucking amount, and then guess what? You don't have these issues anymore.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think they were caught on the hop to some extent as well, because with Microsoft, with smart delivery and smart buy and all the rest of it, they've kind of changed the narrative to some degree. Yeah. And Sony is still trying to do it the old way, because it used to be that if you had cross-gen titles, the earlier gen title would cost less than the new gen because they always put the price up for the next gen. And so, in a sense, Sony are just doing what they've always done. But the narrative's changed. People are seeing that Microsoft have got smart delivery and they're thinking, well, why don't Sony do this? There's no reason for this, especially if you're buying it digitally, for crying out loud. Why does the digital edition cost more? And those special editions, I can't remember what they were called, I got it written down somewhere, the two extremely expensive editions of Horizon Forbidden West, and I've had a go at Microsoft for doing this in the past as well. You don't get a disc in the box. It's digital.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
What you're paying for, that extra money you're paying for, is a load of plastic tap. And okay, it might be nice looking plastic tap, but that 100 and odd quid extra that you're paying is for plastic. That's it. I
remember years ago when this is before Steam became as ubiquitous as it is now. You get that with PC games. I remember going to buy a copy of Dishonored and it was just a code in a box.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, otherwise you'd need 62 DVDs,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's almost doing you a favour then.
It probably was in that instance, but it's just, I just don't understand now why that's like. Oh.
It's really funny how PC just left the physical media, left it ages ago.
Right, this is it.
They never did Blu-ray. Yeah. They don't give a fuck about Blu-ray. They never did it. They did DVDs and we're out.
Yeah.
It's funny because that all started to change as I left PC gaming. Yeah. Because Steam had sort of been out a little while, and then James came along, and we were like, well, we need a room for him, so I boxed up all my PC stuff and mainly played on my Xbox at that point, and didn't really do PC gaming for about 10 years or more, just a little bit more than 10 years. And in that period of time, it went from physical media, it just went, and it happened really rapidly. And when I came back in, I don't know, 7 years ago, or whatever it was, when I first started getting back into PC gaming, it was like, oh, it's all digital now. It's just, there is no physical games at all.
And there wasn't really much complaining, was there? It was
it's so simple.
Just accepted it.
It just works.
It's because Steam offered such a good solution, really.
Yeah, it's a good platform. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I know somebody said to me in the comments, I said, people didn't really moan as much as people did moan about it and stuff. But I don't remember people moaning to the level that they have about other things. It seems to me it was, I think, because Valve also had quite a good track record for their games. I think they were held in quite high esteem. And people kind of trusted them, I think. I mean,
I remember buying Half-Life 2 and thinking, well, I have to install this digital platform to play it. And I'm like, I think it was a bit weird at the time. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe this is the future.
Yeah,
it's like that was 2004.
OS. It's a library. It was like iTunes for games,
Yeah. I thought it sounds like a good idea.
And the good thing about Steam was that they actually let you back up your library to a separate hard drive as well. So it's not like you ever just lost the data between generations or something like that. Like, you could always back it up. You could always have the digital files. I'm pretty sure you could burn it to a disk if you really freaking wanted to.
Yeah, I've done that myself. Yeah. I've moved the whole thing onto an external and then put it back on.
Because that's actually something I really dislike about what console's been doing over the last, probably the better part of a decade now, is that as we move through different generations, from, like, for example, from 360 to Xbox One, not so much with the Series X, because the Xbox One and Series X and the PS5 and PS4 are somewhat seamless. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's wrong for PS5 and PS4. But anyway, the digital libraries between, like, the Wii and Switch and, the Wii and Wii U and Switch and the 360 and Xbox One, I feel like I forgot what I owned digitally between the generations. Like, they seem to get stuck on the consoles, and when you start up your new console, your next gen console, it doesn't just go, oh, here's all your games that you own. Do you want to reinstall them? Like, that's something I feel like we really missed out on, that the PC space had nothing to do with that. Like, it was just, here's your games, here's Steam, here's your games. You never had that issue. So that was my biggest gripe with digital transition with the console space, was just keeping track of it all, or stuff just getting locked. Especially on Nintendo.
Nintendo were the worst for that. And Microsoft have tried to make inroads into that, haven't they? I think of the big three, I think in the console space, I think they're the ones that have really pushed this, although I do have some issues with them on this, because they talk a good game, but they don't necessarily deliver quite as well as they promise.
No, I mean, they could, for instance, I've spoken about it before, but Game Pass for PC, they encrypt the install folders, so they're nothing like the accessibility that Steam has.
Yeah, because it's much more open source. They're locking
you out.
Feeling.
Exactly, yeah.
And do what you want with your game because you bought it, type thing. I mean, I guess the difference there is you haven't bought the Game Pass title, have you? So
I think that's probably why they had to do it that way. Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, piracy is still piracy. It doesn't matter. Like you steal the game from Steam and upload it, you steal the game from Game Pass, you upload it, there's no difference. So, maybe they don't need to encrypt, I don't know, whatever. Maybe they do it to appease publishers and all the people they're getting the games from.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Always causes problems, though, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Always causes problems.
Yeah, I'm talking out my ass. I'm just spitballing. I'm not defending it.
No. I agree with you. I think you're right. I just think that whenever you try and implement any kind of protection like that, you always... I can't think of ever a time when people haven't introduced something like that it hasn't caused other problems. Yeah. I mean,
I've had issues with games. They're crashing, and I'm sure it's to do with the way they're installed on free Game Pass.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, absolutely. It's better now. It's actually been really good the last month or so, because before that, I had constant problems with games just crashing out after about 10 minutes. And I can't fix the problem because I can't get access to the folder.
Yeah, so, interesting. That is very frustrating. Yeah, that's not good. What I would love to see, something like, I don't know if it's still called this, but xCloud. Speaking of like lost and forgotten games, from like the summer of arcade on Xbox Live on 360.
Oh yeah,
I'd love to just be able to like, one day go into like Game Pass or a separate app if xCloud isn't rolled into Game Pass. I'd love to just see all those lost games pop up. That I bought under my Xbox account 15 years ago in xCloud. Here's all the games you owned on 360. Here they are again. That would be
That'd be so cool. I think the problem there is, and I've had issues with Microsoft with things like Forza. Some of the Forza games drop off fairly early on. It's not like they've had a particularly long life and they drop off the store. So if you've bought them already, you've still got them. But if you haven't bought them already, tough shit. And... I've got a problem with that because, like I say, it does go against what Microsoft have said in terms of game preservation and all the rest of it. But on the other hand, I do kind of understand that. And I remember, I think I've mentioned this before when I've been chatting to you guys. I remember the guy from GOG, one of the guys from GOG was being interviewed in Retro, Gamer or whatever. And he was saying that it's really hard with some of these older games because sometimes you don't. It's not just that you can't get the license sorted; you don't even know who owns the license in some instances. And so, trying to get these games to actually run on a newer system can be a real big job.
Very
and
true.
I think that's probably the case if you look at some of the games that Microsoft has got. It's going to be true of Sony and probably Nintendo to some degree as well, where they just can't get the licenses anymore. You get it, especially when you're using music and things like licenses for cars and things in driving games and stuff. I think
they don't last long, do they? Those car licenses. I remember them saying that was the big issue with Forza.
Yeah,
they have very set licenses on the use of the cars, like branding and image.
I think what they're going to have to do is, whether they can or not, I don't know, but they're going to have to make some sort of agreement whereby they say, look, as long as we're prepared to put this game out, we get the license in perpetuity, and maybe you get a small cut or something if we keep putting it out. I don't know. I mean, I'm no expert in that field, but if you want to preserve games and you want to keep those kind of games out there, Project Gotham Racing, I'd love to see that. That's probably why that's not appeared as a backwards compatible title.
Yeah.
But, I want to see these games.
Yeah. When does Forza just become so big that they just tell these fuckers that they're going to charge them for the free advertisement of their vehicle? Like when do we cross that point? Like, are we close?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's a pretty
what
big
I'd love
franchise.
to see? I'd love to see a Forza, I mean, we're getting off topic a bit here, but I'd love to see a Forza pack, a bit like, the Halo Master Chief collection. I'd love to see a Forza collection where especially Forza Horizon with all the maps and stuff.
Yeah, right.
That would be awesome. I'd love to see something like that.
That'd be brilliant, yeah.
Or at least all the vehicles, like, modernized for the latest version or something, like a huge car pack or something.
Yeah.
Cool. Or a seamless world. Like, that would be cool as well. Like you said.
That's what I'd ideally love to see. So you could go to, like, the new one, Mexico, and then you could go to the UK and
then Australia.
that'd be awesome.
That'd be sick. That would be awesome. I love that.
Yeah. But anyway, let's just bring it back around to Sony briefly again, because obviously, as we're recording this tomorrow, it seems Sony are going to have an event. So rather than just ragging on Sony during this, let's hopefully look at tomorrow and hope that we can see something a bit more positive. I've no idea what they're going to announce tomorrow.
God of War.
And
so you're expecting new games to be announced, are you, as opposed to them just showing something like God of War?
No.
I would. No, I'm not.
I would love for them to announce some new games tomorrow, but I'm not holding my breath. Let's be honest.
I think we'll get one new announcement. I think at least.
I
just got a
definitely.
feeling.
I think they'll announce something big, like that. It'd be like a big hype thing. Like it'd be their next big quadruple A landing 2 or 3 years from now. Like 10
years
like
from now.
Yeah. They'll show a shitload of the new Horizon game, and then they'll have a good slice of maybe like a bit of a 2 minute, 1 minute, 2 minute gameplay for like God of War or something, and then they'll tease something that's really interesting.
Oh, I think that's more than likely we'll get some God of War trailer that shows a bit of gameplay at last, rather than just the logo.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. But what do they tease?
16 times the detail.
That's what I think would be really interesting. Is like, what is there like? Because we know God of War's coming. We know Horizon exists. It'd be cool to see God of War. But what's like the thing that they tantalize us with for like 2 to 3 years from now? Like, is it an existing franchise that's already big that they're doing another installment of, or is it something completely new?
Do you know what I think? There's some dormant things like franchises out there, all things they haven't worked on for instance, Infamous. I'm expecting another Infamous game at some point.
Yeah,
because that was a launch title for PS4, and I'm not saying they're going to show it tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we see another Infamous game.
Well, what developers?
Sucker Punch of
Sorry, Sully, go on.
I was going to say, what developers are we aware of that we know what they're working on? Like who in their kind of portfolio hasn't spoken up recently?
Sony Bend are doing something other than a Days Gone sequel, so we know they're doing something new.
That would be a while off.
They told us.
Yeah,
I mean that's a little early probably for anything other than something CGI. Sucker Punch obviously finished Ghost of Tsushima, so I think it might be a bit early for them to be. If they did do Infamous, I don't think we'll see it for a while.
DLC.
I doubt we'll see anything from Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog game.
Too fresh.
You might see something for the multiplayer of The Last of Us. I think that's going to be a separate game from what they were saying.
God, yeah, I'd forgotten about that, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think that's too early as well. Last of Us Remastered, supposedly they've taken that over, haven't they?
Yeah.
Another remaster.
Do we really need? I mean, do we need it? I mean, Christ, really?
No, I don't think we do.
I mean, it's a great game and everything. I enjoyed playing it, and it was great playing the remaster on PlayStation 4. But no, it's exactly the remaster on PlayStation 4 is not that bloody old. Jesus Christ! What are they going to be saying? They're going to give us another remaster of The Last of Us 2 or something? Or they give us.
Well, that could be something they show. Would be a PS5 version of The Last of Us 2, and it was 60 FPS.
Yeah, I could see them giving us an upgrade for that, maybe.
That makes sense. But as far as new stuff, I'm just trying to think of the other studios.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of drawing a blank. I'm trying to think back to like earlier PS4.
Well, the early days of PS4 were pretty fallow. There wasn't a great deal coming out, was there? Really?
I mean they only have those like 3 to 4 studios that are really banging out those, AAA.
What's the one that does the shooting games? Housemarque. They bought them, didn't they? Did they buy them?
Yeah, that rings a bell.
They bought Evo recently as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Evo.
So maybe they got some announcements for like tournaments and stuff. Maybe something fighting related. It's a big tournament.
Well, my friend says they bought that Dutch company that's doing the PC conversions of their games as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's hard to know exactly what I think we'll see a PC version of Ghost of Tsushima soon as well. I think that's the next one.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
When we
PlayStation games, don't know actually.
Yeah, because they haven't got many sleeper studios that we're not aware of what they're doing. Whereas Microsoft have quite a few, like, 'cause they've had that many acquisitions. It's kind of like, what are all these guys working on? But I have a feeling there'll be something that pops up tomorrow that will be like, of course. How did we not see that coming, from this studio?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure. They did buy, incidentally, they did buy Housemarque, but, I mean, they put out Returnal, and it wasn't that long ago that Returnal dropped.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, yeah, I forgot that was Housemarque, so they're not going to be showing anything unless there's some DLC, but that doesn't really work for that game, does it? So.
No, well, it's not my type of thing, really. I don't really like too much repetition in games at the best of times, and those games are designed to be repetitious.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
How much has Gran Turismo released yet?
No,
so we're probably going to see something more on that, aren't we?
Yeah, because we haven't had I don't think we've had a huge reveal for that, have we?
No, it was just a teaser, wasn't there, at the PS5 launch
That's what
event.
I thought. Yeah,
we didn't see much at all. The thing is with Gran Turismo, if they follow the pattern they did with PlayStation 4, it'll be bloody years in development. It took forever for that thing to drop.
Yeah.
Well, this
released it with loads of bugs.
Yeah.
This, I mean, it has been in development for a long time, right?
Yeah.
It has.
Maybe they'll just come out and
I'll be honest with you. I'm not. I can't get excited for it because it seems a long way off, and maybe they'll say, "Oh, it's coming out in November." Who knows? But I've got Forza to play at the end of the year, so do you know what I mean? Am I really worried too much about Gran Turismo? Personally, I'm not, and I know there's people out there who prefer Gran Turismo, but
I used to in the first PlayStation. I thought it was a tremendous game. Graphically, it was way ahead of anything else.
Oh, it was the best best driving game out there,
especially the second one, Gran Turismo 2, and the PS2 version was pretty good, but it hasn't been that great for a while, I don't think.
No, it's one area, and I think we've talked about this before. It's one area where Microsoft has Sony beat, and that's driving games.
Because, as I said, they took over the mantle from the Project Gotham, and I think a lot of them worked for the Forza team, didn't they?
Yeah.
They poached some of the talent, and the PGR games were so good, especially the second and third, and they sort of evolved into Forza. It always took on that kind of like style of game and just evolved it a little bit.
It's kind of like handing over the baton, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. And Microsoft is so much better at racing games than Sony, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the area where Microsoft has had them beat all along.
Yeah.
Certainly for the last couple of generations, anyway.
What is the Shadow of the Colossus developer doing?
Good question.
Blue Point. They just put out
Okay.
Demon's Souls remake.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's a remake.
Oh no, you're talking about the original. You're talking about the original developer.
Whoever published or finished.
Yeah, they did
developing.
They did the Last Guardian as well
Yeah.
in 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's Ueda Fumito. I know the guy's name, but I don't know. Can't remember his studio. It might be Sony Japan actually. I'm not sure because that might be a first party Japanese studio.
Yeah.
But
Sony hasn't Japan Studio shut though, haven't they? Closed? Didn't Sony?
I think
close it?
they have actually now. But I'm wondering what he's doing because that guy's a bit of a visionary, so he's got to be working on something. I like The Last Guardian. It was a pain in the ass to control that, but the story was good.
Yeah. So Team Eco in Japan Studio. I thought
Team Eco.
Yeah.
There you go.
I thought
Team
they
Eco is
did
the one I was thinking of.
close Japan Studio, but I could be wrong.
They did. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So I wonder what Team Eco is working on. When did they?
Whatever it is, it'll probably take 10 years.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be a big.
Well, this is the other problem, isn't it? With Sony is they announce these bloody things and then it's like so far off in the distance. So you're like, well, yeah, okay, well, I'll get excited for it when it drops. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 generations back.
Spider-Man, perhaps. Could we see another Spider-Man? I think it's a bit too
Insomniac.
early for that from Insomniac
Yeah, I
because
think
they just dropped
Sunset
Ratchet and Clank.
Sunset Overdrive 2.
PlayStation exclusive. That'd be
Yeah,
hilarious.
can you imagine? The Xbox fanboys.
The Xbox fanboys would drop. Oh man, that would be just hilarious. You could just spend a week watching the internet and get your popcorn. You wouldn't have to do much else. You could just enjoy yourself. The entertainment would just make itself on that one.
So the team that remastered was it Demon's Souls? I'm drawing a name on the
Blue
blank.
Point, yeah.
Blue Point. Does it take a whole team many years to remaster that game, or do you think they've been working on something else?
I think that wasn't the whole studio that did that.
Yeah.
From what I can remember from an interview I watched on YouTube with them, I think they are working on something else as well. I'm not sure. So maybe there's a possibility we could, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point in the near future.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm drawing a few blanks. I mean, which could mean that we're all pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I would love to tune in tomorrow and have them drop a few bombs, and we all go, well, Sony have turned it round in one show, and this is brilliant. Can't wait. And that would excite me. That would be really interesting. But I'm honestly, I think it'll be okay tomorrow. But I don't think, I said this before we started, I don't honestly think that tomorrow is going to be as big as some of the Sony and PlayStation fanboys think it is.
No, I mean, one thing I am looking forward to is them announcing some more PC conversions so I can watch the crying that goes on in Twitter from the Sony fanboys. I'm not allowed to do that.
Oh man, do you remember though? Going off topic slightly, do you remember when the Xbox fanboys were doing that? When Microsoft started announcing,
yeah,
and the Sony guys were like, no, Microsoft fans are crying over PC ports, and now it's come back to haunt them because it's happening with them as well now. And it's like, oh, for God's sake, people! I don't care whether you're Xbox guys or PlayStation guys or whatever. What difference does it make to you if the game turns up on PC?
Yeah,
Seriously, it doesn't matter. All it means is they're making more money, and therefore you might get a sequel sooner, or you might get, more expansions, or whatever it might be. They've made more money so they can continue developing. And how is that in any way, shape, or form a bad thing?
They said that it sold just under 1 million on PC. Horizon Zero Dawn, something like that, which isn't bad considering. I mean, it sold obviously the majority on PlayStation. You understand that, but it was a profitable exercise, is what Sony said.
Yeah.
To put it on PC, that's why they're looking at more.
Well, it's no small chunk of change, is it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
all right, I'm putting a bet
that kind
down.
of thing. Sorry, Sully.
I'm going to try put a bet down. I'm going to forecast something. Here we go for their announcements tomorrow. So
okay,
I'm going with Blue Point.
Yeah.
And I'm going with a Metal Gear Solid re-release for PS5.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility, actually.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Metal Gear
It's
Solid.
been a while since Metal Gear. Could be
There was rumour that Blue Point were doing something on Metal Gear
There
Solid.
you
Or
go.
Konami were working with somebody on a reboot. It's been rumoured for a long time.
Well, I mean, you look
So
at
we're
Blue
getting
Point.
a PlayStation remaster, PlayStation 5 remaster of Metal Gear Alive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's been Demon
Survival,
Souls.
whatever they call it.
Live.
Demon Souls dropped late 2020. So I think it's totally reasonable to think because they seem to be dropping games like every 2 to 3 years. So
Yeah.
late next year, maybe big Metal Gear release remake. I don't know. That's where I'm going. I'm leaning into it.
I think with Demon Souls, they said that what made it easy is they had all the source code from the PS3 version. They were literally they were retexturing a lot of it, so it wasn't as big a job as they thought it was going to be.
Well, it was a 2-year turnaround from their previous
It was 2 year, yeah.
re-release, which was Shadows of the Colossus.
I think they said they did it in like 20 months or something ridiculous like that. They turned around the Demon Souls remake.
Anyway, I'm going.
They had that. They said
Blue Point.
Yeah.
We're getting something out of Blue Point. I reckon there's going to be a big announcement. That's it. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I just stood up because I was looking at my shelves. I was trying to find a game. Oh Christ, I can't remember it. I'm gonna have to leave it. But anyway, right. Anyway, I. So basically, I think our our consensus on this is that we're going to see something new. We're going to see something exciting, but it's not going to be earth shattering. Am I right on that? Are you
Yeah.
on the same?
I would say so.
Yeah.
A lot of it will be expected, I think.
Yeah.
And you might get one surprise.
I am going to lean into earth shattering.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I think.
Well, I hope
need
you're
it.
right. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, they need it. They've been quiet for a long time. I think they're due. So I think we'll get something big. It may not be something completely new, but they might show a huge big slice of God of War. It might blow our socks off, and they might show something else that'll blow our socks off as well. But I think they're going to have a couple of heavy hitters that'll. I think it'll be received well. Whatever they're showing.
I think
Cool.
if they did show the Metal Gear Solid, like you say, I think that would be a big win for Sony.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about a collection? Maybe.
Don't know. I mean, there was the last one was the HD collection, wasn't it?
Which was
That was a while ago.
PS3.
PS2 or 3, I don't know. PS3 maybe.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah, I think it was on 3.
maybe. Look, a Metal Gear Solid package for PS5 would break the internet. That's earth shattering to me.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Combat that with a God of War and a big Horizon Zero Dawn, and be like, this is why you want a PS5, and you're off to the races, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They certainly need something, I think.
Drop a new IP into that, and that would be.
Oh yeah, it's a good mix
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, me and Grant are a little bit more pessimistic than you are, and you're leaning towards they're going to break
They're
the
due
internet.
for a big win.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I really do. I hope
do.
that they drop and it's going to be like we'll walk away from it thinking, bloody hell, all this time they were just waiting. And
they're just
that'd be
lining
cool.
their ducks up. We've seen it from Microsoft. They've been, they've gone through huge dry spells, and then they've come out hitting. So I think it's uncharacteristic for from Sony's recent history to, it's uncharacteristic. They've never been this quiet previously. So I think they've got something lined up. I think how could you be this quiet so long and not have something lined up? That would be very concerning.
That would be concerning. Yeah, I agree. But if we're talking about earth shattering, let's move on from Sony again, and briefly, I'll have to be brief because we've already run over an hour. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Steam and Valve and the Steam Deck that's supposed to be coming at the end of the year, but will probably arrive in most people's hands sometime next year. Did either of you two pre-order this?
No.
But I wish I did.
I haven't. Yeah, I'm the same actually. I kind of wish I did. I think I will probably try and get one.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, but I think it looks like a great piece of kit. I've always said I think it was a really exciting announcement by Valve.
Oh God, I was beside myself when they announced this. I haven't been this excited for a long time. I was more excited over this announcement than I was when I got my PlayStation 5 and my Xbox Series X last year, because I thought finally I've been like searching for the holy grail of handhelds for a while now, And my initial thoughts were that this is going to be the holy grail of handhelds. And I haven't really changed my mind much, although I do have some caveats, as you certainly know, Grant. And if anyone's watched any of my videos, they know that I have some reservations. And specifically, my reservations go to whether SteamOS, which is basically Linux, can run the entirety of the Steam library, and I don't think that's going to happen. Certainly not in the early days, anyway. But the hardware. What do you guys make of the hardware?
It looks great. I think it looks. Doesn't it look like it's a pretty powerful PC for a handheld? I think.
Oh God,
I can gather.
I think it's impressive for the form factor. I mean, even form factor aside, I think it's. If you compare it to something like a laptop or something, I think it's punching pretty good for its size.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean the power on tap in this thing is something else. I mean there's a fair few handhelds, mainly Windows-based handhelds that are out there that are pretty powerful. There's the Iron Neo and the GPD Win 2, is it? And a few, or three, it might even be the 3 now. There's like 3 out there at the moment that are already starting to drop, which are pretty powerful. But they're more expensive than the Steam Deck on the whole. Yeah. They tend to be over $1,000. And they are less powerful as well.
That's another thing.
So Sorry, go on.
No, I think you're going there. Keep going.
No, so the Steam Deck is offering an enormous amount of bang for the buck, even at the price it is. And the prices in the UK are $349. I've just got to it. I'm looking at it now. $349 for the 64 gig, which features eMMC internal storage. $459 for the 256 gig with an SSD, and $569 for 512. That's for the highest SKU of this. Is roughly half the price of some of its competitors for more power.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really well priced. I think the top end one is like more powerful than most laptops when you consider it's got a dedicated GPU as well.
I mean,
it's going to be able to outperform a lot of like similarly spec'd like PCs for the price.
Yeah, and in a handheld, and okay, it's a big chunk, but it's a handheld which, I mean, you look at this, and like I say, my initial response was this is everything I've been waiting for in a handheld. And if you've already got a Steam library, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, assuming you can afford the bloody thing, because even at those prices, it's still bloody expensive. It's not a cheap piece of kit. But yeah, I mean, I was very, very excited. But I did make a couple of videos saying, look, let's not get too carried away. And
how dare you bring logic into the
got the ire of the Steam Deck fanboys who knew they existed, but apparently they do. Yeah, so what I basically said was, as I said before, I didn't think that it's going to be able to play all Steam games. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason for that is because, as I say, it is running on Linux, and which is SteamOS, which is Linux, and it's going to have to use Proton in order to run Windows games on that software, on that operating system. And that's going to limit what games are available. So, that's not anything surprising to me. And then this week, I think this last few days, there was a Boiling... I mentioned this beforehand, Grant, to you, didn't I? The Boiling Steam podcast, and a guy called James Ramey, who works on Wine and Proton. And so obviously he pretty much knows what he's talking about. He hasn't actually had hands-on with the Steam Deck yet. But he said pretty much what I said, that he doesn't think all games will run. He thinks, and I'll put a link in on this to the podcast. It's about an hour long. It's worth listening to because virtually everything he says in that podcast I agree with. And he says I think he said something like he thinks probably something like 80% of games will run. But that could be a problem if you're just picking it up and playing it and the game you want to play doesn't run. So there are some caveats with this thing. There are some issues. I mean, also in relation, I know I'm going on a bit here, but with like the trackpads and stuff, people who've used the Steam, what was it, the Steam controller, I forgot what it's called, had problems with that. Not everyone got on with that, and that's basically what's going to be in this. So translating certain keyboard and mouse games to this could be a problem as well. But nevertheless, all those things aside, it's unbelievable. It's a phenomenal piece of kit.
Well,
anyway, look, I'm waxing lyrical. Why don't you step in and shut me up for a minute?
I mean, like, you say all things aside, but like, you know, when you go from PC gaming to a console, you know, you used to make some sacrifices. You know, now we're taking PC gaming to a handheld. There's going to be some sacrifices. So I think that's perfectly reasonable, kind of the hiccups that the tech is probably going to have in terms of growing pains and then maturing. I mean, in my mind, this is the beginning of peak maturity for like kind of handheld gaming in terms of taking AAA games on the go. You know, Nintendo and the PSP kind of kicked it off and started it, but this is like another big step in that direction. So we might be hitting kind of peak maturity for, you know, handheld gaming.
Yeah, what a great opportunity to bring PC gaming to a wider audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, something like this is a sort of like an ideal opportunity. No, I don't think all the games will run, but I mean that's important. I think what's important is people will have access to it that might not otherwise have considered the PC as a platform.
Yeah, and this is
say only 60% of the games run. 60% is still thousands of games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be, you know, a console that doesn't launch with a lack of games, is it? It's going to launch with thousands of games available day one.
Yeah, this is still going to be an enthusiast device, I think. This isn't going to be mainstream like Xbox or Switch. The people
it won't be like the Switch.
Yeah,
no.
I dare say majority of people that buy this will walk into this knowing the possibilities. You know, that it's not going to be a device that isn't going to have hiccups. There's going to be software growing pains with this. My biggest concern about the Steam Deck is how good is the LCD? That's my biggest question mark for its price point. I think you need to have a good quality LCD. You know, so many games, you know, have dark
I've heard
scenes.
it's good, actually. I've heard it is good.
Okay, good, fantastic. And obviously the next one is battery life. You know, what's the point in having a portable system if you're just tethered to the wall? Which I don't see how
I think the opposite's true on that. I think the battery life's quite poor.
Yeah, see, I figure there's not much you can really do about that.
Not with current tech.
That's going to be interesting how that's received, I think. You know, like, you know, most people, let's be honest, they're probably not going to take it on the road. They're going to play on the couch, so they should be near a wall outlet for power.
There'll be a ready market in attachable chargers as well, you know, like battery packs for it and stuff like that, I reckon.
Some kind of hard case which has an inbuilt battery into it, which, you know, just always charges the system, you know, which like you can get for your phone and all that would be handy.
Yeah.
Something like that will appear probably.
Yeah, that quadruples the frickin' capacity of the battery.
I'll lay money on that coming out right now.
Absolutely.
That's going to happen.
Third party, it's already happening. You can probably already buy them. I think what I really like about Steam and Steam Deck is their approach to how open they're being with what you can do with the kit. Like, if you want to wipe this thing and install just Windows, you can. You know, it's very open. They're happy for people to tinker with this. So I
have some caveats there, though, Sully, in as much as they've said you can do it, but there might still be issues with things like drivers and stuff like that. So,
for sure,
it's you know, that's going to be the bleeding edge of Steam Deck experimentation. I think certainly early on.
Level stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, people that are wiping
will hack this.
Yeah,
they'll hack it to pieces, and they'll find the best way to get games on it.
They'll dump Switch games on. All of a sudden, we'll be playing Switch games in 120 FPS with better resolution. You know, like
it's funny that guy James Ramey actually said that in this podcast. He said he can see people doing that. Absolutely, they will.
Yeah,
I actually said I wanted to buy a second one just so I could use it as an experimental machine to see what I could do with it.
Yeah, this almost feels like open source kit. You know, this is which is why it's cool.
It does.
The flip side of that, though, is that is the thing that excites me about it in some respects, but it's also the thing that makes me worry about it to some extent, because in order for this to be really successful, and I think that Valve definitely want this to happen, I think it does have to cross over to some extent to a broader audience.
Yeah, ultimately, yes, you're right. It would, in order for it to have like more than like a niche appeal. It's gonna, but I think that's the key, is finding how they're going to be able to do that.
Well, it has to be that the if you just buy it and you've got SteamOS on it, you can play most of your games, and that's a pretty seamless experience.
Yeah,
if that's
exactly.
the case,
it has to be straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, if they can hit that sweet spot where it's like that for the person who just buys it and wants to play with it and doesn't want to mess around with it, doesn't want to put Windows on it, doesn't want to try different versions of Linux, maybe try dual booting, if they can find that sweet spot between that sort of semi-casual player, the guy who's in between being, because you're not going to get the real casual players pick this up, I don't think. But if you can get the guy who's got a Switch and plays a lot of games on the Switch, looks at this and thinks, I've got a PC, I'd like to be able to play my PC games on the go. If you can get that market and you can get the enthusiast market, then I think it will sell really well. I think it's a really difficult sweet spot to hit, but I think they could do it with this. I think this is the product that's going to do it, if any product will. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is marketing and image. Does this device even look appealing in terms of how you advertise this? Because PS5, Switch, they've all got the Apple products. They have that aesthetic. And to me, this thing looks like a freaking hoof and brick. Like I don't think this,
big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not really that aesthetically pleasing, and I think that is a big part of the equation. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is like, how do you make this appeal to people?
It could be a sort of unintentional fitness device. You could do
exactly.
lift weights with it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a heavy old beast. It certainly is heavy. It's about twice as much, maybe even more than twice as much as the Switch. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is quite heavy. I think you're right. Yeah, much heavier than the Switch.
I do think it's interesting the placement of the thumbsticks and stuff, though, because I think having them at the top is actually a good idea for something that's going to be a bit heavier.
It looks weird, though.
It does look weird, but people who've had it in their hands say that it actually feels comfortable. And the other thing for me is having them at the top. If you've ever played your phone on one of those connectors with a controller, it's top heavy and it pulls you down. So if you've got the controls at the top, it's not going to do that. It's not going to tip your hands while you're playing it. So even though it's a bit heavier, it may not be as wearing when you're using it. It's only speculation, but that's a possibility. And that could be a design choice. That could be why they're at the top like that. Or it could just be because that's where they've got the bloody trackpads and they didn't want to have something in the way of those. Who knows?
Yeah, I think, again, this is like more technical issues, but, how much are we going to have to sacrifice on this device? Because, you've already brought up Linux and all that. But, if I buy this device, will 80% of my library run, but will it run like shit? How optimized, even if I'm playing these games on low setting, like, is shit going to be optimized to just run on this device?
I think Linus tested out Doom, didn't he, on it? Was it Doom Eternal?
Yeah.
He said it ran at medium settings at 60, he got 60 FPS.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Then.
Yeah.
Good.
Fantastic on a handheld. It'll blow the Switch away when it comes to those kind of games.
It's the Switch we always wanted.
Yeah.
And we'll never get it.
It is.
This James Ramey mentioned something I thought was really interesting as well in this podcast again, and I do urge everyone to go and listen to this because I think it's absolutely perfect. I think there was one thing I disagreed with him on, and that was it could end up competing with the Switch, and I don't think that's going to happen at all. No. But he says in this that the Linux in and of itself has much less overhead than Windows. So that in itself could mean that games run better on this than they do in Windows.
In terms of resources, you mean? Linux is very streamlined.
That's fantastic.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I think they would be very lucky if they ended up in competition with Nintendo. Like,
oh my God.
That at least means you're on the ball field.
If they sell a quarter as many as the Switch, then they'll be. I reckon they'll be having bloody parties because that will be an immense.
Well,
I don't think they'll come close to that, to be honest. But
they really need to hit that non-competitive PC gamer space. Not the casuals, just the titles, the games that aren't playing like CS:GO, Apex Legends. All the competitive games. They need to hit that. Your average PC gamer that's not there to be competitive. That does want to leave the desk because this may be really popular with them because, sitting at the desk for long periods of time is not comfortable.
But that could actually be a problem for that area as well with the esports and things. I know Valve are trying to work on this, but you've got the anti-cheat. Anti-cheat doesn't work with Linux. So any games that employ anti-cheat, and that's an awful lot of online games, aren't going to work with this unless they sort that out.
Yeah, I don't think it matters because you're never getting those guys anyway. They're never going to buy that device. They're never. No,
certainly not competitively, but people might want to play, a bit more casually. It still will affect somebody who wants to play. I don't know, what's that game you used to like to play? Grant the class is class based. Overwatch, yeah.
Overwatch, yeah.
Yeah, it'll affect Overwatch, for instance. And there's a lot of people who like to play that sort of more casually. So that could, you sit down to play Overwatch and it doesn't bloody work. That's going to be a cross against the Steam Deck.
True.
That's on the Switch as well, I think, Overwatch. Now, I think they released it a while ago on the Switch. Yeah. Yeah,
so, technically, this should run a lot better on this than on the Switch. But if you load it up and it just doesn't run, well, you've lost some of your market there. Yeah, so I firmly expect them to sort that out, but whether they sort it out for launch or not is another matter.
This is the thing. I think this would do well if it sells 5 million units, to be honest. I think that would be a big success.
Totally.
Yeah.
They've had experience with like Linux on other devices before because they did the whole Steam box stuff, Steam console stuff. And they were all running
that
Linux,
went well, though, didn't it?
They're terrible, yeah. But at least we know that, stuff runs on Steam. Like they had quite a good sample for that.
Well, this is
Linux.
This is where that Proton comes in. Let me see if I can find it again. Proton. Yeah, I had people saying to me, a lot more games run than this, and I'll take their word for it. Maybe a lot more games run than are listed here. But if you actually look, I've got Proton up at the moment. I'm looking at it now, and it says here, reports written, games reported. So it's got 134,590 reports written, 19,641 games reported, and games that work, 16,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's not all 100% working either. You've got like green, red for those that don't work. So if I look in here, I've got things like Counter-Strike work, Dota works, Team Fortress works, and then if you look at a lot of the online games, PlayerUnknown's doesn't, Apex doesn't, Destiny 2 doesn't. Tom Clancy's doesn't, as far as I can see here.
I just wonder, though, with games like that, how much they'll be played on a handheld.
Well, no, I agree. And Sully said this as well. I think
I know what you're saying, though. They have a popular following. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because, as I already said, I'm really excited for this device. We do need to be careful not to over-egg the pudding on it and get too carried away because we do that and we're going to be disappointed. And I don't think we should be disappointed with this. I think it should be something we should be excited about.
It's an ambitious undertaking, so it doesn't take much for the wheels to fall off a little bit.
Exactly. For me, what I hope is that what happens is exactly what Steam want to happen in as much as this creates a new market for handheld PC consoles.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's plenty of people that want to get away from the desk, and I think that's what they know that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're bringing a dock out for it, so it will dock like the Switch does. Yeah, you can plug it into a monitor or whatever. Yeah, I think it's a great piece of kit. And with those caveats... Sorry, go on.
I think like any piece of new tech is the first version of it will have issues and hiccups. It's the second or third one that you're going to start seeing, all the refinements come in. So,
yeah.
As long as they stick with it, it can only get better.
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't think that's the things.
I don't think it's going to get worse. It will, as long as they stick with it, and that's always the thing. we look at something like Stadia. The potential for Stadia is there, but has Google got the will to stick with it long enough for it to actually fulfill its potential? No, I don't think they have.
No.
But
and the thing is, Valve, although Valve have had failures, like you say, they've had also successes. Like look at the Index. The Index is, despite being one of the most expensive VR units, is still really popular.
Yeah,
in relative terms for VR, it's near the top of the Steam charts in terms of sales.
Valve likes the bleeding edge.
Yeah, they do.
They like being there.
Yeah.
I just say I really hope Halo runs on it because Halo is available on Steam. That would be cool.
Oh god, I think Halo will run on it.
That's true. Yeah, it is.
That'd be really cool.
I mean,
whether the multiplayer or sorry, again.
Just imagine that first time on a handheld, unless you use xCloud on a phone. But that's pretty cool.
The other thing, just before we finish, because I think we're sort of getting to the end now, there's just one other thing I want to say about this. And I remember when Ryan McCaffrey interviewed Gabe Newell, and he said, the other thing, Gabe was like quite closed-mouthed when he said this, but he said, the other thing is this could be the ultimate Xbox handheld.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
Gabe, for obvious reasons, probably didn't want to talk about that too much. But then since then, Phil Spencer's got hold of it, and he was playing it using xCloud, and he said it runs xCloud really well. But the two things that the thing that came to mind from those two little elements from Gabe and from Phil Spencer was that, it's nice to talk about running Xbox games on this, but the only way that anyone's run Xbox games on this so far is through xCloud. And so, again, we come to that problem of you're running on SteamOS, you're running in Linux, and there is no Linux version of Xbox Game Pass. There is no option for doing that. The only way you're going to do this is through xCloud. And we know that there are inherent problems with running games through the cloud. So I think people need to temper their expectations there a little bit as well.
Microsoft or Xbox have released games on Steam, though.
Yeah, so if it's on Steam, it'll be fine. But if you're looking to actually run your
library,
your Game Pass library on it, then you're probably going to need to play it through xCloud. I don't, short of installing Windows, and then you get into that issue with do you have drivers and all the rest of it. So again, it's just another little thing I want to throw out there and say, look, again, let's just temper our expectations a little bit, because I do think even some of the mainstream outlets are getting a little bit too carried away in some instances with this. But anyway, I just wanted to add that little bit at the end. Is there anything else you guys want to add just before we finish?
I don't think so. I think we've about covered it all.
No, I think we covered it.
Again, cautiously optimistic and excited.
Yep.
Yeah.
I might get
I think echo that.
Pretty much, apart from Sully, who's ecstatic over Sony's conference tomorrow and thinks that it's going to be earth-shattering.
Already pumped. They hit it out of the park, guys. Yeah.
I think, generally speaking, whether it be Halo, we didn't touch the hardware, incidentally, but we can maybe talk about that another time. Whether it be Halo, whether it be Sony with their event tomorrow, or the Steam Deck, I think we're all cautiously optimistic and erring towards maybe a little bit more than cautiously optimistic on all of it. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
Cool. And I think that's us done. So tell us where we can find you, Sully.
Predominantly on Instagram under Yesterday's Tech.
Cool. And I'll put a link into that. And Grant?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter mostly nowadays. So yeah.
Oh,
I'll put my handle on underneath if you want, but I'm under my name, which is Grant Rencourt, so you can find me on there. Cool. And you wanted to say something else, Sully?
Yeah, sorry. You can also find me. I should have mentioned this because it's a bit more of a open, easier to chat space, but have a Discord server. It's called Download Retro. It's predominantly retro gaming focused, and there's a lot of Aussies hanging out in there for any Aussies that are listening, but everyone's welcome. So feel free to jump in.
Cool. And if you give me the link to that, and I'll put it in the description as well.
Cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And Grant, sorry, you were trying to say something, Grant?
No, that's fine. I'm saying I know you put the link, Sully, into the Joe's Discord, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
A while ago,
yeah.
So I think I keep keep forgetting to join.
Yeah, I think we're the download retro puts a little bit of some people off because we've also got like a bit of an Aussie themed display picture for the server. I think we're talking about maybe changing that up a little bit because I think we have more like non-Aussies in there now. So
that's right.
I don't know. Everyone's welcome, obviously. But it's
Me
a
and
cool
Grant
place.
have come in and changed the balance a bit.
Yeah. We've got quite a few POMs in there, so it's all right. You won't be alone. But it's very retro focused, so it's pretty
I don't
cool
mind
in
that.
that sense. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway, that's us done. You know where to find me. I'm not going to talk about me here anymore. I think I've talked enough in this. I'm losing my voice. And I'm gone. I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of tea and loosen up this voice. And I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.